Um, I would like to welcome all of you for joining us today in another informative BCS webinar series entitled Thesis Survivor Tips. Is Statistics the Main Problem? My name is Dr. Aimi Nadira from the Department of Public Health Medicine, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Okay? To make sure we're helping you as best as we can on this topic, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and our honorable guest speaker will try her best to address all of them at the end of the session, inshallah. I am honored to present today's guest speaker. Professor Zaliha binti Ismail is a public health professor who has dedicated more than 20 years of her life to academia and research, making her one of the most respected figures in the field of public health medicine. She has received various national and international funding and is recognized for her exceptional research supervision skills. Professor Zaliha Ismail has supervised and graduated an extensive number of PhD and Doctor of Public Health students under her supervision with outstanding research outcomes. She also serves as a reviewer for a number of local and international journals. Without further ado, I would like to welcome and invite our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Zaliha Ismail, to deliver her session. Thank you very much, Prof.
You all can see me or not?
Yes, Prof.
Boleh nampak mi?
Boleh.
Boleh nampak, boleh dengar. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all. Just now you heard from Dr. Aimi that for my CV is so is so impressed. Actually it's not that. It's not that excellent. I'm just ordinary people. I'm still learning. Even though I'm retired now, I'm still learning. Don't take too hard on that note, yeah. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the. Let me first share. Can you all see the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Why my background ada dua gambar macam tu? Okay, I put as the full screen. Can you all see the full screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So our topic today is about the thesis survivor tips. Is statistic the main problem? Okay, for your information, my topic today is not to give you about the theory or about the main things that you need to do to finish your thesis or to finish your dissertation. It's just based on my experience as the candidate. I'm also a candidate of masters, okay, and also as the examiners, as a supervisors, okay, as external examiner, internal examiner, and so on. So we are sharing what I have learned before, okay. This is not moving. Kena tegak. Okay. Before that, what is a dissertation? Okay. What is a dissertation or a thesis? Okay, I think everybody knows about this, right? Before you are going to before we are giving you the master's or doctorate degree, you have to finish your research. You have to finish your writing, right? Either a master thesis or a master dissertation or PhD thesis and so on. So if we look at the many of the German and US university for the research mode of study, normally they have what we call it a training courses that we introduce to the student so that you are you are maybe you have some sort of research methodology lecture or research methodology workshop and so on. But in the British University previously, but currently they already changed it. Previously, you are alone. When you do a research for your masters, you have to learn yourself, to study on your own, with the helps of supervisors, with the help of professors in the university. But now recently, I've read through some of the article and so on. They already changed. So for those who are going to have a PhD and so on, some sort of, the university will give you some what we call it, bimbingan, right? We give you some sort of lecture on the research methodology and so on. Even though in our local university also, some of university, they support you very well. They guide you all the way until you graduate. But some of the university, even masters, they leave you alone. So like my daughter doing masters in UM. Most of the time, I sometimes I talk to my daughter, why your supervisor or lecturer didn't guide you or didn't plan it properly? So no, not much. So I have to ask my daughter, go and see your supervisor, talk to your supervisor and so on. Because in your ITM, for example, I was with your ITM before, right? We, as for especially for the Masters of Public Health, for Doctor of Public Health or PhD, we guide a student. We teach them, at least we teach them on the research methodology workshop in UITM, in PHPM, or in public health department. Every year we conduct a research methodology workshop, and we open it to all, right? We open it to the other master's candidate also from the other department. So either you want to join or not. But some of the university, the student have to learn by himself. So it's quite difficult for them. Okay. So writing your thesis is likely to be, for me lah, I have experience before. So it's one of the hardest. What do you all think? Anyone? I'm sure some of the participants in this webinar, right? You are the student now starting writing or whatever, right? Is it so? No answer? No response. Okay. Yeah, so one of the hardest and is a most time-consuming task, right? And it will be stressful and disheartening. Okay. So but remember, everybody, like me before this, I have experience of doing things very hard. I'm having a stress condition and so on. But remember that many have come before you, and probably most have felt the same stress at that time, desperation and panic. But at last, they got it. They got the scroll or whatever whatever we call it, the scroll, the masters or PhD and so on. Okay, so dengan kata lain, kita banyak sabarlah ya. Kita banyak sabar. Okay. It's not moving. Okay, so okay, for now I'm going to talk about the general guideline. This guideline may not be applicable to some of you. Okay, maybe because I know some of you may be from different department. It's not from the medical faculty and so on. So, but this is the general based on my reading, my experience as a lecturer and also as a student before. So the dissertation overview, I think some of you already, for UITM candidate, you already got the template how to write a master's thesis or how to write a master dissertation or how to write a thesis for PhD and so on. So traditionally, normally we have 5 main chapters, right? before the chapters, we have a title page, we have a signature page, whatever copyright page, and so on. I think you can have a look at your dissertation template or thesis template that was given to you by UiTM. So for each university, you have to follow the format that given by your university. If you are UiTM, we already have very nice template, right? The other university also, some they give you just the not the template, but they just give you the maybe the outline and how to do your writing. Okay. For the overview and another thing, chapter, we have 5 chapters, right? The introduction, the review of literature, literature review, methodology, presentation of results, summary, implication, and conclusion. And after that, we have a footnotes, references, depends on university also, what are types references that you are going to use, and bibliography. But sometimes people don't put the bibliography, but if you put, it depends. If your university asks you to do it, then you have to do it. Okay, and then of course the appendix, right? Okay, this is just example in the university, in UiTM, okay? The front page, of course, you need to have a title, your name, either your PhD or master's or whatever. And this is a table of content, there's many things, right? If you look here, the every chapter, for example, chapter 1 is already introduction, chapter 2, literature review, but we have an introduction there. Okay, the chapter 3 also we have the introduction. Okay, every chapter we have introduction. I will talk about on this after this. Okay, it's not moving. Okay, this is the chapter 5 and so on, and then you have references, appendix, auto profile. This is the bibliography. Sometimes people put inside there. Okay, this is chapter, right? For the chapter 1, you need to write some sort, the content of it is mainly a purpose and significance of your study. Yeah, I think when you do your, when you did your proposal before you do a research, of course, you have everything, right? The purpose, the significance, the justification, and so on. So in that case, you in that thing, you have to put the chapter 1, which is an introduction. And then you have a chapter 2, which is a review of the literature or literature review. Okay, I will talk one by one after this. And then you have a methodology for chapter 3. Chapter 4 is the result, and chapter 5 is a discussion. Okay, for the chapter introduction, this is crucial to setting the tone of your thesis. This is a very important chapter because in this chapter, you have to introduce your research to the assessors or to the examiners, right? It is a first impression you will make to the readers. Like if you are the examiner of the thesis, I look at the introduction to see the overall picture of your research or overall chapter or overall of your thesis or dissertation. So it presents the purpose, context, and scope of your research. So by understanding the introduction, then you can go direct. Whether for the examiner, sometimes they would like to write the introduction. Later, they go straight to the methodology sometimes. The literature review is sometimes in the middle. It depends. Some of the examiners, they would like to read the chapter 1, later chapter 2, 3, and 4 in the sequence. But some of it, like me, sometimes I write the chapter 1 and then I write the chapter 3, and then after that I go back to the chapter 2 normally, because we would like to see the sequence, the story of it, right? So in this chapter 1, you need to add some theoretical concept or maybe the body of knowledge in the field that you are studying. Okay, the detail of it, you have still you have a little bit, it's not really an introduction, but it's introduce what you are going to study and the background of the problem, the statement of the problem, the purpose of your study, why you need to study this, why you want to do this topic. Okay, of course, you have a research question, right? And then significant of the study. What are the significance of your study? What are you can contribute after this? What are the knowledge that you expect that you will get after you finish your research, right? You need to, because in the masters or especially in the PhD, where you do a research, when you do a research, you need to give an outcome or give a body of or something, a new knowledge. Okay, so in this chapter you may have to write something that in your study, at the end of your study, you will produce something. You will benefit some of community, or for example some of the company or whatever. Okay, and then you need to put also the definition of term, of course, the assumption, limitation. Sometimes the limitation before your study and during the study, maybe you overcome it and then but still have a limitation. So maybe you put a little bit before, but the limitation sometimes we put at the end also. But in the introduction, you can write a little bit about your limitation. So people, while reading, people know that, oh, you have seen this limitation, and then you maybe we can see either you have take note of that limitation. Okay, and of course the conclusion. Okay, for the chapter 2, literature review, this is the part that I think orang kata siang malam lah you kena baca. Daripada awal proposal sampai ke akhir sebelum submission. Even before defense the thesis, before defense your PhD thesis or whatsoever, you have to read a lot of literature review. Okay, so because sometimes even though you are not put it in your thesis, but during the viva or during the defense, people will ask something. So maybe if you come across that topic, if you come across that literature, so you are able to defend your thesis well. You know I come across before this. I've read in the thesis, the candidate didn't put anything about it, but when the defense, when we ask, she or he can answer it well. So the examiner will impress, So that's why you need to read a lot of papers, a lot of books or whatever. Okay, so for the literature review, of course, you need to have an introduction, how do you do it, and then search description. Okay, what are the methods that you are used to do a literature review? There's many methods, right? In the research methodology, during the research methodology, we teach you many things, okay? Many ways how to do a literature search. And then you need to put a conceptual or theoretical framework. The conceptual framework, I think if you attend the conceptual, the research methodology, before this, I gave some of you maybe the conceptual framework and also the theoretical framework, and also review of research. This is need to be organized by the variable or by the themes of your study. For example, you have your study have 3 parts. So you need to organize that according to the parts, so that the examiner will easily understand the flow of your study. So you should discuss and analyze the body of knowledge with the ultimate goal of determining what is known, what is not known about your topic. Maybe your topic, by looking at the title, people say, hey, this is already common thing, why you need to study this. So in your literature review, maybe you can discuss, you can put, okay, this is already studied, but my study in the different way, or maybe you approach to look another variable. For example, this previous study studied just 5 variable, but your study maybe you need you would like to study 10 variables, for example. So all this you need to mention in your literature review. Okay, for the methodology also, you need, okay, let me see before this. Okay, literature. For methodology, chapter 3, okay, we have an introduction. Research design or study design. This is a very, very important because people would like to see what are your study design, whether it's appropriate or not for your study in relation to the outcome later on. Okay, so I think you all know that research design, there's many type of research design. In clinical, they do RCT or whatever, they do the study design, they use, or maybe community intervention study, either you do intervention or not, and whatever. I think it depends on your study, right? Research question should be very clear of the research question. Okay, in this methodology, actually, you would like to inform your reader or your assessor how you will undertake the research and why you will do the research in this way. Okay, so you need to provide details about the stages of your research, the process, the sample framework, the theoretical basis, and how outcomes will be measured. Okay, so you need to be very clear on this. The setting also, where you would like to study this. Sometimes people put in the title, okay, the study of blah, blah, blah for Malaysia. And then at the end, you just conducted or you just take a sample in the, maybe just Selangor or Klang Valley. So is it suitable when you put a Malaysia? Is it your sample represent Malaysia? All right, so you have to be very careful on this. So either if maybe if you cannot take the sample, like let's say your title you would like to maintain Malaysia, but you are unable to go for each of the state. Maybe you can do it by zoning, for example, zone utara, zone selatan, zone timur, and then you randomly select the sample from each of the zone. So itu pun boleh diterima pakai. But you put Malaysia, but your sample is just around Sungai Buloh, for example. So it's not meaningful, right? So people nanti boleh argue balik lah, why you do this, okay? Okay, and then participants. Okay, what are the participants? Maybe sometimes you put adults. Adult, what age? Is it proper if you can put, okay, the adult 18 years and above? 18 years and above also, you have to be very careful. Sometimes go up to 80, go up to 19 years old. And then when you have a data later on, when you have a result, your data will be skewed, for example. You ada je 2-3 orang yang 90 tahun, 100 tahun. So of course your data will be skewed. It depends on the research lah. So maybe you need to specify more, maybe 18 to 60 or 65, right? So 65 above, maybe you consider elderly and so on. Okay, and then data collection. How you collect your data? You must be very clear. Either you use a questionnaire or you use interview technique and so on. The questionnaire, what are the questionnaire? Is it validated? Is it not validated? Is it you create on your own? If you create on your own that questionnaire, you have to do a pilot study to test it, to validate. Okay, so all this should be very clear. And data analysis also, this is the part that very interesting because kita masukkan dalam topik kita, right? Is the statistic a main problem? Data analysis, most of the time you need to know your statistic, right? And then conclusion. Okay ke so far? Boleh semua sebab orang tua bercakap ni slow sikit. Okay, so chapter 3 again, the extension of it, okay, need to answer the question, how did you do your research and why did you do it that way? Maybe there's many way to do it, right? So, kenapa you pilih jalan ni? Kenapa you tak pilih jalan lain, for example? Okay, you nak pergi ke Kota Damansara, there's many way to go. Nak pergi jalan kampung ke, nak pergi jalan bandar ke, for example. So, in this research, you kena some sort of justify why you do this that way. Why not this way? Why not that way? Okay, so should be very clear. Okay. Ini pun kita dah cakap tadi. And then not to forget not to forget about your consent and ethics committee approval. You need to put inside there. If you go through your ethics committee, then maybe you have a number of approval. So you put the number of approval and also the data management, right? So how are you going to manage your data? The security. If I think some of you, maybe you have experience applying the international grant. International grant is very particular about the data management. How are you going to manage your data, the security of your data? So you nak letak kat mana, you nak simpan kat mana, macam mana you nak buat dengan data. Because you have a personal data, data from everybody is some sort of can go to medical, legal and so on. So you have to mention that if you have it. Normally, we have to. Okay. Dalam proposal pun you dah kena buat tau, this data management ni. Especially internal grant lah. Kalau internal grant tu memang this one kena sangat-sangat. Kena letak lah. Okay. This one. Okay. Coming to the chapter 4. The presentation of the research result. Same thing, you have to introduce what are you going to do with the data. Okay, what are the statistic analysis that you are going to use. Maybe you can put it there, and then later on you have to describe a bit on the data cleaning, because some of your data sometimes it's not really clean, right? You have to, maybe you got it 1,000 data, but at the end you analyze only 900, for example, or 800. So why you exclude that? So maybe you can mention it in the data cleaning, right? And of course, but the finding, okay? The finding, the way you organize the finding, normally we would like you to organize it according to your research question or the hypothesis. Okay, so it's very easy for the readers or for the examiners to look into it. The statistic. Okay, talking about the statistic, you have a basic statistic, you have an intermediate statistic, you have an advanced statistic. In whatever stages of the statistic, normally we talk about the descriptive and also inferential. Descriptive is very basic lah. You just present the table, the figures, the numbers, percentage, proportion, and so on. The inferential is to answer your hypothesis. Because in your study, you have a research question and you have hypothesis. You later on, you are going to infer your result to something else, right? So you infer to, because your study, you just take a sample. Maybe 100 or maybe 200 or maybe 300. Your sample, if you select it properly, right, it can represent the whole population. Just now I mentioned that you would like to study Malaysia study. You collect the sample from Zone Timur, Zone Selatan, Zone Utara, for example. At the end, you hope that by selecting this sample, later on, it can represent the whole population of Malaysia. So this is the analysis that you are going to do, because you would like to analyze and later on you would like to infer back to the whole population. Okay. And then, of course, you need to write a conclusion. Okay. Okay, this is just to see, to show you a little bit about in the section result, what are the introduction that you need to write. So in this just example of one of my student. Okay, so they mentioned that, okay, this chapter present the analysis result and the research finding obtained through a questionnaire used as a research instrument. The questionnaire was submitted, blah blah. Jangan banyak sangat, sikit je. Okay, this is in Malaysia to get the feedback to answer all question and hypothesis based on the study objective. So they mention lah a little bit, okay. The input result allow the analysis stage to be carried out, and then they cerita lah apa the next, apa dia, okay. The analytical discussion begin with the description of data, cleaning process that involve removing street lining cases, for example, they mentioned. Next, the writing is divided into two main part. What are the part? Descriptive and inferential. So descriptive apa dia, inferential apa dia. Itulah you introduce for the result. So when examiner read this, oh dia buat macam ni, dia buat data analysis, dia buat data cleaning, and then dia bagikan kepada descriptive analysis and inferential analysis, and then for the inferential analysis, what are the tests that they are going to use. So you boleh tengok lah kat situ, and the conclusion and study finding are discussed at the end of this chapter, for example. Okay. This is just example. Maybe some department different way of writing it. Okay, so you write the introduction and then summary of the findings. Okay, conclusion also. But this one in this discussion chapter. Okay, this is discussion chapter. This one you introduce. And also you write a summary of finding, not the whole thing, not repeating the chapter result inside the chapter discussion. You just mention something, highlight that you would like to discuss. Okay, so maknanya something yang you nak focus for your discussion. So maybe you can write the finding. Okay. Bukanlah the whole thing of the result. Tak ada, kita tak repeat balik. But maybe you just summarize the finding and put before you go detail in your discussion. Okay? And then you go through your discussion and then suggestion, conclusion, and so recommendation. You add the recommendation also. Right? Recommendation. Okay. Am I too fast? Okay ke? You all boleh follow ke? Okay. Okay. Introduction in a chapter discussion. Okay, is crucial to setting the tone of your thesis. It is the first impression that you make the assessor. Sama juga macam introduction tadi, but this one you would like to give an idea or to give a picture to the examiner that what are the things that you would like to focus in your discussion. Because sometimes you have results sometimes sampai 10 pages, for example. But the result too, you present descriptive, inferential, but later on in your discussion, you're not going to discuss the whole thing. You're not going to discuss detail about the descriptive statistic and so on. Maybe you just summarize on the inferential, for example, in your discussion later on. So you have to introduce. And the discussion normally to answer, so what? If you have this kind of result, so what? How are you going to discuss it? You compare with the previous study. You compare with the previous body of knowledge with your result, for example. And then another thing that saya nak pesan lah kat you all. Sometimes in the discussion, people put your study in 2023, for example. The previous study that you are refer is 2013, for example. So sometimes you kata the study in 2013 or my study support the previous study. Betul tak macam tu? Which one support? Yang mana support? Yang awal ke yang lewat akan support? Okay, my finding supported by tadi. Okay, you kata my finding blah blah blah, and it's supported by the previous study done in 2013. Dia study dah lama, macam mana dia nak support you punya study sekarang? Kan terbalik kan? Betul tak? Dia kata, okay, my finding supported by previous study. Tak betul sebenarnya tu. Kan, your study ni yang support, yang mana? Ya, supported by, you kata supported by, makna previous study tu support your study. Salah lah, dia dah study lama, you study baru je. Okay, to be careful on that word lah. Sometimes banyak sangat lah mistake people buat macam tu. Okay. Okay, this is the chapter discussion, the example, yeah. Okay, for introduction in the chapter discussion, okay, this chapter aims to discuss the finding, conclusion, implication, and contribution of the study. The discussion is based on the research question, including target construct. This is the finding. Okay, this is the finding and they summarize. Okay, this because this study, dia buat modeling, modeling, and they determine the construct, the predictors. So they just focus on that one. Okay, the discussion is based on the research question, including the target construct, the predictor construct, and the role of the variable tu. Contohnya macam tu lah. So in your study maybe it's different way. So maybe you discuss what you would like to discuss, then you have to mention it before going for further detail in the discussion. Okay. In chapter 5, it's good to have a summary. Okay, summary is not to repeat the objective of the study, but you summarize the objective and then with your result and then with your discussion too. How are you going to summarize it? Ini yang kena pandai betul sebelum nak pergi kepada conclusion tu. Okay, you summarize balik. Macam you ingatkan balik apa dia objective you, apa dia problem statement, okay, the respondent. Sometimes you, it's not all, it's not all. Some of it is applicable to some of you lah. So maybe you can consider balik sampling procedures, because sometimes you discuss so many things, but actually your sampling procedure is not really purposive. For example, it's just convenient sampling. And then you have to mention that lah. Okay, so saya sebenarnya yang study saya ni is just a convenient. So it is better to have a purposive sampling. That one you can discuss in your limitation. Okay, and the method or research that methods of your research that you have done. Okay, what are the things that maybe you can improve later on. Dalam recommendation lain tau, dalam discussion, sometimes your result tu, how would I say, your result sometimes you can say this finding, okay, macam ni, but if irrespective of the methods of selection, if you have a proper selection of the sample, maybe the result it could be like this. Okay, you can mention that. Okay, then statistical treatment, for example, because in certain inferential statistics, you can use many types of statistical analysis, but in your study you choose this type, for example. So why not the other type? I'm worried that if you do not put there, people will ask you during the viva, if you have a thesis viva. So why not you using this? Why not you using this way, for example? So if you discuss it then you selamat lah, awal-awal lagi you ada dalam tu. If not, you have to answer during the thesis viva. So there's many way. But I have a few students, there's many way of analyzing it. Tapi they analyze this way. But during the viva, external examiner tanya, why not you use this way? So you have to justify. It's not wrong. It's still right. But you have to justify why you use this method and not this method. If you this method, the finding would be something else. No, it's not still the same. What other method you use pun still the same. So sama aja. Okay, nanti kita pergi pada soalan banyak. Nampak soalan lepas ni Okay. Okay. Ini patutnya awal-awal lah. Okay, for the writing chapter 5 ni, first you must go directly to the point of highlighting the main point that you would like to discuss. Okay, so no need for you to explain the detail thoroughly because I said just now, like my student, there's so many variables, many predictors, but she just would like to discuss these predictors because nak menjawab balik dia punya objective hypothesis and also the title sometimes. You kena tengok juga title. You sometimes the title tu ada predictors inside there. So in your discussion you have to be focused on that. Kan baru menjawab all the hypothesis tu. Okay, there is no need to explain detail. And then you must avoid this one. You must avoid copying and pasting whatever you have written in the previous chapter. I have experienced dia copy balik apa dalam result tu sebiji-sebiji masuk dalam discussion. No, that's not the way you write it. It's better to try as much as possible, rephrase back. You nak tulis balik, memang you nak tulis balik result tu, but rephrase back in a different way so that tak nampak lah macam you copy tau. Okay? Okay, in conclusion, okay, there's another part is conclusion. It is the last impression you will make. Not only does it give a summary of your thesis, but should provide a clear, convincing answer to your research question. Okay. Okay, that's about another, this is a conclusion of your research. Conclusion of your thesis kan dia ada subtitle conclusion tu. Is the place to emphasize the new knowledge that you have contributed to the field of the study and explain its significance. Many of the student, when I read a thesis, I examiner of UPM, UKM, I nampak in conclusion ni dia summarize balik result. No, that's not the way. You tak boleh dalam result because you ada a statistical conclusion or problem conclusion, right? Dia tulis balik, repeat balik the result. Oh, there is a significance of the blah blah between that. No, in your conclusion, you cannot repeat the problem conclusion of your statistical analysis. You have to write what from your research overall. You have done so many things, you have done a lot. And for your research ni, apa sebenarnya yang you dapat? Something about, for example, new knowledge. Okay, the new knowledge that you have contributed to the field of the study. Okay, saya lupa pula nak letak saya punya student punya example. So that to leave a strong impression on the assessor about the strength and relevance of your research and your skill as a researcher. So bukan nak to repeat balik result, nak tulis balik, tak. Okay, you conclude, okay, from my study, for example, I can conclude that the Malaysian population, whatever, blah, 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 contohnya lah. So bukan nak kata, okay, Malaysian population, there is a significant only between ni. No. You summarize balik, itu yang dikatakan conclusion. I remember one of my sifu when I was with USM before. berpuluh-puluh kali nak buat conclusion. Tak betul dia cakap kita repeat result. Tak betul. It's not that. You have to conclude your research. You can conclude your study. This not repeating the result. This not repeating the findings or whatever. You have to macam apa dia from your study, so what? Apa yang you jumpa? Apa you dapat concludekan daripada study you ni? Itu yang penting. Susah tau nak write a conclusion sebenarnya. Tapi kita banyak buat, kita just repeat je result. No, tak salah sebenarnya. Okay. So importantly, dia kata kat sini, conclusion chapter must link with your introduction chapter to complete the framing of research and demonstrate that you have achieved what you set out to do. Okay, itu yang penting. Kalau ada siapa ada contoh, kita boleh discuss. Okay. Okay, for your conclusion, this is some of the checklist lah. Should answer some of it, not all. Okay, a clear answer to your research question or hypothesis, a summary of the main finding or argument. Summary of main finding ni bukan bermaksud you repeat the result tau. Summary in a word, you summarize it, your finding or your argument. Okay, and then connection between your findings or argument to other research, and explain and significance of the findings, implication of the finding pun boleh masuk dalam conclusion. Okay. And then come to the recommendation. Okay. This is interesting. Kalau you all baca thesis banyak-banyak macam-macam dia recommend. Dia recommend apa yang orang dah buat. Recommendation must contain practical suggestion that will improve the situation or solve the problem investigated in the study. Okay. Bukan you nak suggest something yang orang dah buat atau something benda yang dah ada. Something for the new study, for the future study, for your, let's say your outcome too can change the policy, for example. So maybe you can recommend to the policy maker that using your finding, for example. Itu boleh, you boleh recommend kan. Okay, first it must be logical, specific, attainable and relevant. Okay, sometimes banyak yang tulis recommendation ni benda orang dah buat dah. Dia tak perasan pun. Dia tulis, okay, for example, dalam public health, let's say dia buat study to know the knowledge on knowledge and attitude of the diabetes mellitus among population A, for example. So the finding of the study that the knowledge is very poor, for example. So dia pun cakap lah kat situ, okay, to recommend that klinik kesihatan will give the health education to the patient yang datang kat klinik, I mean community nearby yang datang ke klinik, so bagi education. So if you know exactly, that's the routine that has been done by the clinic, you know. Each of the clinic, dia memang dah buat rutin dah health education. Each week or each day, patient yang datang ke klinik, dia akan select a few people masuk dalam bilik, give education, especially on diabetic. And every 1 month or every 1 year, each of the KPI dia dah, each of the patient yang ada diabetic tu have to go through the health education session. Tapi dia recommend macam tu. Of course tak nampak macam tak cerdik lah kan. So be very careful on recommendation. You have to macam search lah whether this has been done or not. If already been done, so no point to recommend. Okay, tak nampak tak bagus lah. Okay. Second, it should be addressed to person, organization or agency directly concerned with the issues. For example, you buat study something on the macam my student just now study about the safety culture of the training institute. So from your study, if you say that the lacking of safety culture, maybe you can recommend that this institute should have a proper package of workshop or whatever to enhance the safety culture among the dia punya staff or for example macam tu lah. So directly. You can go directly to the agency if you study direct to the agency or organization. Okay, and then present another topic which is relevant to the present study, can be for the investigation. Okay, this biasalah dalam study selalu kita, okay, future study can be conducted, tapi kena fikir macam ni, macam ni. For example, if your study you use a convenient sampling, for example, so your result finding is like this. So maybe for future study, you can recommend that the people do it in a proper way using purposive sampling or using the good sampling by doing the. You can recommend exactly what should we do. You tak boleh lah kata, okay, using purposive saja. That's not enough, you know, by purposive. Because you have already gone through the study. So you tahu macam mana cara nak buat. You buat by convenient, but actually it can be done by purposive sampling, for example. So you can recommend lah, oh, buat sampling macam ni sebenarnya. You have to identify the institute, for example, go to the institute, approach dia, selecting the people by the group of ikut course dia ke, ikut group ke, macam tu. So you have to do that. Okay, then never recommend anything that is not part of your study and not be mentioned in your finding. Sometimes dia lebih sikit lah, dia recommend benda-benda yang dia tak ada sangkut paut dengan your study. Cannot. Something, you can recommend something yang memang related with your study. Okay. Okay. In finishing the writing, pesan lah, ini just pesan orang tua lah ya. Do not expect that you can finish too early before due. Selalunya kita nak finish, kita nak graduate on time, right? Of course, graduate on time. Semester 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can, for example, the RPH or PhD, you can only submit in UiTM, you can only submit if you already masuk semester 5 kan. So you tak nak, you kata, oh masuk semester 5 tu, first day tu saya nak terus submit. Janganlah too ambitious, right? So you have to strategize your work and then finish on time, graduate on time, but not too early lah. Some of you, yes, I'm sure some of you can. I have one of my students, semester 5 tu dah boleh submit semua siap. Tapi memang kerja kuat lah. Tak adalah kita nak sampai macam tu kan. So nak GOT, graduate on time, but not too early. Okay. Even if nothing goes wrong, a quality thesis takes about 6 to 9 months to complete. That's why for Masters of Public Health, selalunya dia ada masa dalam around 6 months lah to complete. Before that, tapi ada tau, saya nak cerita kat you all, one of my student previously in USM, before register as a candidate, she already have done a lot of work. Dia dah buat. But this one you have to be very careful jugalah. Sama ada you dah ada ethical approval or not. If you have ethical approval before this, you can go on with the collecting data, whatever, buat study. And then enroll the PhD bila data dah ada. Bila data dah ada, baru dia masuk enroll as PhD. Of course lah, you graduate, memang boleh graduate awal lah. Before that, dia buat kerja sendiri, dia dah ada data, dia dah ada ethical approval, dah ada semua-semua. And then dia masuk buat PhD tu, sekejap je lah. Boleh habis. Okay. Editing, okay. Another part of editing, after you have finish your writing and so on, you have to do editing. Editing, normally we have 2 levels of editing. Micro editing and also macro editing. Okay, micro, this correcting spelling, grammar, whatever lah. Okay, the macro editing assesses the overall structure. Each chapter flows logically from the previous chapter. Okay, after you have finished your spelling or grammatical error, you have to look from page 1 to page last page, whether it's kata is like a storyboard. Cerita tu berpanjang, bersambung-sambung. It's like you read a storybook, right? From chapter 1 or from bab 1. Biasa kita baca buku cerita kan. So bersambung sehingga you dapat follow sampai ke akhir, you tahu pengakhiran ceritanya. Same thing with the thesis actually. From the chapter 1 until to last chapter, it should have a proper flow and a nice storyboard. Okay, same thing. So itu yang kadang-kadang orang tak sempat buat. Dia tak sempat because dia tulis tahu tu kadang-kadang bila examiner, the experienced examiner tulis macam nampak pap sana, pap sini. Itu sometimes kita kata it's like a copy paste ke ni? Copy paste from somewhere else because the story is not bersambung-sambung tau. Macam lompat sana sini. So of course, I know some of you maybe you buat chapter 3 dulu, chapter 1 and then go to chapter 3 because kita dah ada method semua kita write chapter 3 and then baru kita write chapter 2 and then write. But after all, lastly, you have to see the flow from chapter 1 to chapter 5 until the last page, whether it's flow well or not. Itu yang kadang kita terlepas. Bila you buat macam tu kan, examiner dia seronok baca. Nampak aja flow dia. Page by page. Chapter by chapter. Okay. Okay, checklist for writing. Last kali kena check lagi lah. Okay, what is the objective for your study? Or who or what is the focus? Where and when was the investigation conducted? Tu jangan lupa. Okay, what method of research? How were research data gathered? How were the respondent chosen? Okay, what were the statistical tools applied to treat the collected data? Based on the data presented, analyze what findings can you summarize, finally organize the summary of the result of your study according to the way of question ataupun according to the objective. Okay. Okay. This is a general survival tips. Okay. Before coming to the user statistic ni. Ni survival tips. Sebenarnya you all dah pandai dah semua ni. Okay. Saya tak gerak. Okay. This is general. Okay. Get habit of starting to work on your dissertation at the same time every day, even if your initial goal is just to write 15 to 20 minutes daily. Jangan tinggal writing ni 2 minggu tak sentuh. Tak boleh. At least adalah maybe weekend you spend your time with your family, maybe of course you tak buka komputer lah. If possible, try to look. If you tak tulis pun, you just baca tau. You just buka baca. Oh, so you some sort of have a continuity of writing. You perasan tak? Bila you tak tinggal dah, tak buka seminggu ke, bila you buka balik, kat mana nak start, kat mana nak buat. So try make it a habit every day lah, at least 10 minutes or so, go through balik, even though you tak, now everybody have a smartphone, right? You have a smartphone, you bawa je smartphone kat mana-mana, dia tengok, so you can see the flow. Okay, flow saya lepas ni saya nak buat apa, lepas ni saya nak buat apa. Okay, get the most of your dissertation or research supervisors. Ini yang penting. Supervisor tu, we appoint the supervisor to guide you, to help you. So, pergilah jumpa dia kerap-kerap sikit. Bukan kerap sikit lah, kerap banyak lah. Kan? If possible, set up weekly or monthly meeting to see this supervisor. You ask your supervisor, okay, please give or please book your calendar, please put in your calendar that third week, last day of third week each month, I will see you. You tak boleh, then you bagi tahu lah dia tak boleh. So the supervisor also, okay, I dah mark in my calendar that every third week, last day of third week, you will come and see me, for example. Okay? Learn from the best. If not just a supervisor, you can learn from somebody else, maybe your other lecturer in your department, or maybe your colleague also, your senior sometimes. Okay, seek out peer support. Check in with other students in your department at your university who are also writing dissertation. Sometimes you are so stressed, you don't know how to do it. Maybe you can just chit chat a few minutes with your friends, or maybe you start with your statistical analysis, for example. You can ask the seniors who already have more experience than you, for example, who already conducted same analysis, for example. Okay, so you can ask the seniors. Okay, kalau tak nak jumpa lecturer sekalipun, kalau tak jumpa supervisor sekalipun, you can ask your seniors. Don't get overwhelmed by feedback from your advisor or your committee. Another thing. Okay, you dah draft, you pergi jumpa supervisor. Supervisor scratch. Oh, this one cannot, you have to do back again, and then you have to rearrange back. Don't overwhelm. Take it. But remember, another tips ni. Now people banyak use the soft copy, right? If possible, kalau you ada duit banyak lah, try to use a hard copy chapter by chapter, give to your supervisor. Or maybe now you use a soft copy also, but ada contoh-contoh dalam tu kan, editing, whatever, track changes, whatever. Please save it. Maybe you can make another copy of a second editing. Okay, first check by the supervisor. Supervisor dah contoh-contoh semua, you balik, you baiki, you remain yang tu. You buat another copy. Because you know, saya pun supervisor juga, saya pun external examiner juga. Sometimes supervisor ni dia dah lupa apa yang dia komen tau. Bila you dah hapuskan balik dia punya all the track changes, all the contoh-contoh tu, dia dah lupa. Dia datang, dia komen balik. Ni kenapa buat macam ni? Kenapa tak buat macam ni? You boleh tunjuk balik yang asal tu kat dia. Previously you suruh buat macam ni, kenapa sekarang you suruh buat macam ni? Bukan saya nak ajar you all berkelahi dengan supervisor, but at least supervisor pun dia tak adalah nak tahu the whole 100% of your research, you know, because dia sometimes many student under dia kan. So dia nanti kan lupa. Datang ni you kena cakap, okay, first copy you cakap macam ni, but now you still buat macam ni, and then dia boleh ni track balik lah. Salah satu lah tips, tapi jangan pergi cakap supervisor macam tu, saya ajar nanti dia marah habis. Tapi itulah, supervisor ni banyak lupa juga. Kalau saya lah, saya memang lupa. Jadi selalunya saya nak tengok balik. Can I have a look the first copy yang saya edit? So at least you kena simpan benda tu. Jangan buang, jangan ni. Don't be afraid to cull some of the research elements. Sometimes kalau you tulis dah banyak dah, tiba-tiba at the end, you nak buat result or maybe you nak buat discussion, they say, oh cannot lah, I have to buang lah, to chop it out, half of it. Or maybe not half lah, maybe some of it. Sometimes you have to. Alah sayangnya, saya dah buat banyak ni, saya kena buang. Sometimes macam saya kata tadi, there's macro editing tu. If you cannot see the flow, then maybe you have to chop it. Okay, you have to cull it, some of it. Okay, so tak payahlah. So tak payah nak sayang-sayang sangat lah. So not all of it is a gold dust. Remember that. Don't worry about the introduction and conclusion. Yang tu kadang-kadang kita boleh tulis last. Okay, complete the introduction last. You might need to draft your first introduction chapter early in the process. Of course, you have an introduction yang awal-awal tu kena ada lah, because that one you did your proposal, you already have the introduction, right? But for the introduction of the research thesis book tu, so maybe yang tu you finish it last lah. Okay, PhD selalu kita buat yang tu last. Okay, don't leave the formatting for the last minute. Check for your university dissertation and formatting instruction early in the process. Okay, like UiTM, we have a template. So try to use as early as possible the template. But nanti dia akan lari banyak. Kalau you tak ikut tu, tiba-tiba orang kata, ikut template ni. You are in trouble. Try to follow the template as early as possible. Try to add something truly original to the greater knowledge pool. Okay? Yang betul-betul original lah. Jangan, macam, for example, macam you baca literature review also. Don't just read the abstract. You need to read the whole thing, the whole paper. Abstract sometimes benda yang tak betul pun. Kadang kan. So you kena baca abstract and then go to the whole paper. Be ready to adapt. Okay? Be ready to adapt because sometimes you already have certain way of doing it. But your supervisor sometimes have another way of doing it. Another way of thinking, for example. So be ready to adapt, to follow whatever being advised to you. Because you nak graduate ni. Kan? Kalau you nak ikut cara you, maybe you dah tak boleh lah bergraduate. For example, maybe people will say, tak nak ikut ni, tak nak dengar cakap ni. Okay? Okay, receive and implement feedback gradually. Okay, gradually. Okay, you implement the feedback gradually. So not to wait for the last minute, right? So maybe you send the first chapter to your supervisor and the second chapter, the fourth chapter. So regularly, don't wait until the end semester 6 baru nak hantar first chapter. No, cannot. So tak boleh kerja bertangguh. Okay, don't underestimate how long the writing process takes. Nanti ada orang tera-tera cakap, alah kacangnya ni. It's just maybe I can write it within 2 months, 1 month. No, don't underestimate it. But sometimes you are stuck in between. Because for example, if your result, tengok-tengok result you, alamak tak boleh buat macam ni, alamak tak boleh buat macam ni. So don't underestimate, alright? But don't panic. Okay, don't panic. Of course, you will. Of course, I think from time to time you akan panic juga. But don't be too panic lah sampai dapat anxiety disorder ke, kita tak nak lah kan. Your thesis will take over your life during the writing process. But remember, this will pass. Again, tadi pun saya dah cakap kan. So remember to break up your dissertation work into a series of smaller, more manageable tasks. Okay, buat chapter 1, chapter 3, and maybe chapter 4. Okay. Okay. It's a lot of regular short breaks. Kan? I did mention to you that you have to do it every day, at least 15 to 20 minutes or whatever. But don't forget, we are human beings. Okay, you need to take a regular short break. Pergi holiday lah during holiday, like besok kan awal Muharram. So pergilah bercuti. Tapi short break lah, jangan lama-lama. Sampai 3 weeks tak buka thesis. 3 weeks tak buka komputer. So cannot. Okay, focus on one task at a time. Okay? And then, of course lah, need to nourish yourself while writing your dissertation. Be sure to give yourself plenty of break and stay hydrated. Don't neglect your health. Okay, now coming to the important parts. Okay, you all boleh lagi Berapa minit dah kita ni? Okay. The importance of statistic in dissertation or thesis. Is it important or not? Important, right? Tak ada statistik, tak boleh nak hantar submit thesis. Is the statistic the main problem? Main problem ke? Okay? So, you all know it, right? Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, presenting, and analyzing, and interpreting data to assist in making more effective decisions. Without statistic, we cannot make decisions sometimes. Nanti orang cakap, mana statistiknya, signifikan ke tak? Okay, tak usah cakap kosong lah. You have to do a statistical analysis. So, it's a very, very important. It's important, but whether it's a problem or not, that's another question. It's important, but is it a problem? Okay. it's you already collected data, you already have a data, but you don't know how to do a statistic, I think that's you have a bigger problem. Why I say so? During the proposal development or making a proposal, we normally ask people to write what are the statistical analysis that you are going to use after this when you have a data. In each of the proposal, I think they have a plan of statistical analysis. So if you already have the plan of statistical analysis during your proposal development, you do not have a much problem doing the analysis during the writing of your thesis. So that's a very, very important in proposal development. Some of the people said that proposal development is more difficult than the writing your thesis. If you have a proper proposal development, if you already have the plan of statistical analysis, what are the statistical analysis that you are going to use for your data analysis later on, you are, I think you are you are kata boleh sedap duduk lah. You already have everything. You just need to analyze. You have a data and then you need to write. That's all. Okay, so that's important for you during the proposal development. Try as much as possible to put the plan. That's why kalau you masuk kita punya ethics approval in UiTM ethical approval, we ask you what are your plan of statistical analysis. Sometimes if you are not correct, we ask you to go back and see the statistician to make sure that it's really proper statistical analysis. But don't forget, sometimes you have this kind of proposal development, but later on when you have a data, sometimes you cannot use that one. That's another issue. That's much easier to handle it compared to you don't have anything in your proposal about the statistical analysis. So please put something in your statistical analysis, be appropriate. Okay, what are the statistical analysis that you are going to use? Appropriate statistical analysis that you are going to use later on. Okay, the wrong selection of the statistical analysis may create some serious problem during the interpretation of the finding, affect the conclusion of your study. Okay. Okay, how to choose the right statistical analysis or statistical method? Okay, first it depends on the aim and objective for your study. Okay, the type and distribution of your data. Okay, and the nature of your observation. Either it's dependent or independent. Right? Either it's paired or unpaired. Okay, this all aim and objective type of distribution of data is already in your proposal. When you write a proposal, you already put your aim, you already put your objective, you already mention what are the variable that you are going to use. In fact, some of the proposal in our department, in public health department, we ask the student to put the dummy table. You put the statistical analysis and you need to put the dummy table. How are you going to present your result in a table if you want to present in a table? So if it's already there, so when you want to write a thesis, it's very easy for you because the dummy table is already there, the statistical analysis is already there. From the proposal to the research writing, if you already, during the proposal, you already know what are the type of statistical analysis that you are going to use, so you pergilah belajar. You learn from the statistician, you learn from the somebody else, you learn from your senior, whatever. So by the time you have a data, then it's already there. So tak adalah susah sangat kan. Cuma itu tadi, we have a statistic. Kita ada basic statistic, kita ada intermediate statistic, we have an advanced statistic. So which level you nak pergi? Also it depends on your aim and objective. Some of the objective, just can be answered by the descriptive statistic. So maybe you just buat descriptive statistic. But some of the objective, you need to answer it by the inferential, by the hypothesis testing. Then you have to do hypothesis testing. Either is up to the intermediate, or maybe you need to go for advanced, for example. If you would like to predict, to do a modeling, the predictor, and of course you have to go to advanced. If your study just doing to know the predicted outcome, maybe you just go up to the intermediate statistic. Okay, or maybe just a basic statistic, basic simple correlation, or basic logistic regression. Simple logistic regression. It's not the multiple logistic regression with the predictors and so on. It's depend. All is depend on your aim and objective for your study. Right? Okay. In the statistical research also, we have so many things. We have a descriptive statistic. Jangan cakap descriptive statistic. Alah, descriptive. Sometimes, there's a lot of information can be obtained from the descriptive analysis, especially for clinical research, you know. Some of it you just can see just by this descriptive, the percentage, the n percentage also is so meaningful. Okay, and then we have an inferential statistic, we have predictive statistic, prescriptive analysis, exploratory data analysis, causal analysis, mechanistic analysis, so many things. So all this depends on your study design. That's why during the proposal development, don't be shy. Go and ask around, ask the lecturer, ask the statistician. Kalau perlu upah lah, carilah statistician upah. Okay, dan bila writing tu dah senang lah sebab you dah tahu dah. Okay. Okay, descriptive or inferential. Okay, this is just example. Yeah, I think some of you, if you already follow the research methodology workshop conducted by our faculty, you already know this. Okay, either you would like to use a parametric or non-parametric, depends on your data distribution, whether your data is normally distributed or not normally distributed, right? So we have a descriptive statistic. For example, you would like to mention about the mean, standard deviation, the n percentage, whatsoever, right? The non-parametric is median, interquartile range. Okay, sample with population. Okay, one sample t-test. Okay, in the non-parametric, what are the constant sign rank test? Okay, this is unpaired t-test, independent. So we have independent t-test in non-parametric, man-Whitney test. Okay, two dependent group. Okay, we have paired t-test. If three or unpaired dependent group, independent, we one-way ANOVA. If dependent, we have a repeated measure. We have a linear relationship, Pearson correlation, linear regression. Okay, that's many. I think you all, by the time you all know this. Okay, and then for proportion, we have chi-square, we have Magma test, we have Z test for proportion. Okay, this is quite a bit intermediate to advanced. We have a binary logistic regression, multinomial regression. Okay, sampai nak buat predictor, you have ROC curve. Okay, life table analysis. Those who have study with survival analysis. Okay, Kaplan-Meier to compare the survival time. So all this back to your objective, whether you would like to see all this. If you don't, your study did not want to look all this, then tak payahlah buat sampai sini. Okay, you buat sampai multiple logistic saja. Okay. Okay, kalau you nak buat sampai, you nak predict something, you nak forecast the study you to in future lah, and then you of course you have to buat yang banyak lagi lah. Sampai advance lah. Okay. Okay, all this sama, cord regression, diagnostic accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, and so on. Okay. So, ni saja summary lah. So, you go back, baliklah sama ada your data is categorical, numerical, quantitative, qualitative, whatsoever. Tak payahlah saya tunjuk panjang. Alah. Kenapa pula tak nak gerak ni? Okay. So data presentation also. When you have, you already analyze your data, then you need to present your data, right? You can present sometimes in a running text. Okay. You can present in a box, table and figures. Running text also is meaningful tau. Kalau descriptive sometimes you tak perlu pun descriptive, tak perlu table pun. You can just mention in a running text. Okay. Okay. So, is the statistic the main problem? Siapa nak jawab? It's a problem if you extract meaning out of little difference. Okay? Benda tu sikit saja, tak significant p-value, tapi you besar-besarkan benda tu. Dan you jadi problem lah nanti. Your orang kata apa, examiner akan tengok lah. Wah, alah, buat descriptive je, tapi cakap tu, the significant contribution to blah blah blah, p-value pun tak ada. Okay, or maybe your study to using very small sample size, not even 30. In fact, you cannot use parametric test. Very small sample size. Okay, if you calculate your sample size, maybe you need 150, but you just bought 50. So of course, it's a main problem. Okay, showing meaningless percentage on the graph. Okay, graph yang memang tak betul pun. Okay, poor survey design, scaling and axis manipulation. Ramai juga orang buat ni. Okay, itu kadang-kadang examiner minta data asal tu kalau dia manipulate dia punya data. Ada yang manipulate. Okay, poor survey design. This is study design. That's why in your proposal, we emphasize more on the study design. Research design, study design. Kalau betul yang ni, result tak berapa bagus pun tak apa. Because you dah betul dah. You buat. Then result you tak jumpa macam tu. Then you discuss all the limitation and so on. It is not wrong actually. If you have a proper design, proper selection methods, but your result tu tak dapat bagus, tak apa. You can discuss. I have experienced one of my colleague doing a masters with me before. From the literature, dia jumpa this way. But during dia buat study tu, dia jumpa the other way. For example, that's one of my friends, so dia nak study determine the blood lead level, blood lead level among police officer who work in the traffic. Pagi-pagi duduk kat traffic light, duduk tahan orang. So masa tu kan zaman kita still guna it's not the free plumber lagi kan, kita masih lagi guna petrol yang ada plumber. So kita nak measure the blood lead level among this traffic officer ni, a police officer yang kerja di jalan raya and compare with the working in an office. By orang kata by experience or by reading, of course those yang kerja di jalan raya ni, of course the blood lead level dia high compared to the office worker, betul tak? Polis juga sama-sama police officer, tapi those work in the office and those work on the field. Tapi the other way round, dia jumpa blood lead level yang dekat office ni tinggi compared to yang duduk di jalan raya. Dia menangis tak boleh nak analyse data dia. Bukan tak boleh analyse, boleh analyse, dapat result. Tapi the findings tu cannot be published sometimes. Tapi dia tu dengan kuat semangat, dengan bimbingan all the professors yang senior-senior, looking through all the literature ni, why? Masa tu tak banyak orang tahu lagi about smoking. Rupa-rupanya, this officer yang dekat office ni, dia smoke more than those in the field ni. Jadi the blood level contributed by the smoking. So dia menangis tau. Dia kata habislah aku nak buat macam mana, data aku terbalik, orang jumpa macam ni, aku jumpa macam ni, menangis dia. Study design, everything all okay. Luckily, masa dia buat tu, dia letak juga smoking habit. Dia tak tinggal that smoking habit. Sometimes masa tu tak tahu sangat lagi the blood level the way 90s, you know, yang ada yang senior saya lah dia. Tapi dia boleh lulus. Straight pass. Sebab the argument tu. Dalam discussion dia mention, I found this, why? Because, but I didn't consider this, I tak perasan. Tapi from theory, those who smoke ni, ini latest paper yang ada, tapi dia buat study tu, paper baru keluar, jadi dia tak sempat nak quote masa dia study, tapi dia quote dalam discussion dia masa development of proposal tu, study tu masa tu 4 tahun kan. So dia buat setahun, lepas tu 3 tahun kemudian tu banyak sangat keluar paper-paper talking about the those who smoke tu having high blood level. So dia discuss everything and blah blah, tapi dia cannot publish lah. Paper dia tak boleh nak publish. Tapi during the present or viva defense, dia dapat excellent. But the way dia present. There's another one yang masters, my friend juga master biokimia, chemical pathology, chemical pathology. Dia punya finding tu tak ada apa. Kata tak ada apa. Kosong, tak boleh nak buat apa. Tapi the way dia discuss, the way dia defend, dia dapat 1 during the defense thesis dia. Pass without, pass, I say 1A ke, macam dia ada minimal correction, setting je. Tak ada correction apa-apa. So jangan, maknanya you all ni, if you have a result, the result is not so impressive, you cannot do much with your result, don't worry. Try as much as possible to discuss and find out why your data is like this and why it's not like this. So you can contribute something new, you know, maybe something new. Oh, actually, if we would like to study this, we have to consider this. So you give something for the future. So the other people, if they would like to conduct the same study, they take consideration of all your points, you know. Oh, if you would like to study, don't consider this, you need to consider this, that. You know? So in other way, you contribute something new in the research methodology. So don't worry much about that. Okay. So in conclusion of our lecture today, so first of all, know the basic concept of the statistical method for valid and reliable result. Okay. If your study need an advanced statistic, and then go and find the statistician. If not, if just a basic intermediate, I think every one of you can do it. At least basic knowledge is important for appropriate selection of the statistical method. So various statistical methods can be used in different situations. Okay. And proper consultation from statistical expert may be an alternative option. You can do it on your own actually. Kalau you belajar lah, tapi dengan syarat you kena belajar lah. And then don't forget, if you want to do a statistical analysis, assumption should be taken into consideration when deciding which is the most appropriate test. If you know that each of the statistical tests, they have an assumption, kan? So all your data to must fulfill the assumption tu dulu lah before you can do that test. Okay, wrong or inappropriate use of statistical may lead to defective conclusion, finally would harm the evidence-based practice. Ini yang kita tak nak. So be careful on this. As long as you already done it in a proper way, walaupun tak advance sangat, but from the intermediate also you can conclude that it's okay. Okay, but your objective tak nak lah sampai nak predict something ke whatever. So don't go into detail. Okay, I think that's all for my talk.